This is Andre Suri. He will be telling you about the long history of Bind 9 and I guess the continuing history of Bind 9.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I am Andre and I work at ISC since past year. You might have known me from CZNIC working on another DNS server, but that's the past. So let's talk about Bind 9 now. Bind 9 started in 2000, and the other things that came from 2000 GCC to 95, do you remember it? Linux kernel 2.4, GNOME 1.2, Qt 2.0, Windows 2000. It was the first camera phone, really. PlayStation 2 has launched it, and new century started, well, only in pop culture in the US. The rest of the world waited 1 year. The history for Bind is really long, and as you can imagine, that there's a technical depth. So this is the versions we had since 2018, and sometimes there was quite a lot of versions the ISC had to support, like 4 at the time for some years, and that's quite a lot of maintenance burden. So we are trying also to change this, and I will talk about this further. So now comes Bind 9.12 that was released just last month, and it supports new shiny things like NSEC aggressive use that Peter from CZN will be speaking about in some next presentation. Service tail. This was a response to if you remember, the attack at Dyn, where everything went black. So this is like stretching the TTL. If you can't reach the alternative servers, it will stay in the cache for a little while longer. There's an update in the response policy interface for response policy zones. Also, major refactoring has been done on the most complex function. Somehow there's a link on this screen, but not on this screen. So if you look up the presentation in the archives, there's a link for the presentation from my colleague Evan Hunt. He gave on the DNS ORG about the refactoring done in Bind 9.12. And I invite you to look at it. It's quite interesting. So in the refactoring also made it possible to speed up the bind by factor 6 for some cases. There are CDS, CDNS tools contributed by Tony Finch. He's one of the biggest contributors along with Red Hat for bind source code. And there's a EDDSA support when available in OpenSSL, and it's only in the development versions now, but once it lands in OpenSSL, it will be available in Bind as well. So let's talk about the future. There are a couple of things we want to do also for you as a DNS community. We want to make the development more open. Some steps have been already taken, like opening the Git repository. The bug database is sort of open, but the default is confidential, and it needs a person to go and move this to the public queue. And as you might imagine, it doesn't happen so often because it's an extra step. You need to think about it, and sometimes you forget. So we will try to do better in the open development, because I think this is important for the open source community and also for DNS community to develop in the open. We want to have a faster release cycles, and along with that goes the reduced support to reduce supported platforms, and also I will show you some new features they are planning and refactoring. So the open development, we will open the issue tracker by default. We will make it possible to have a public merge request, public wiki, public continuous integration, so everything that's possible, and it's not a security bug. You know this is Bind. Security bugs might happen once in a lifetime. In the future, we, along with the mailing list, we would like to have a public web forum to discuss Bind and maybe DNS in general. So I'm announcing this here for the first time. There's an ISC GitLab running at gitlab.isc.org, surprisingly. It's a self-hosted instance, and it's a work in progress, so not everything might work as expected yet, but we will be deploying this during February and making this our main development platform. So you are all, if you are interested in Bind and helping with Bind, invited to join our GitLab. And you will be able to fill new issues there, fill merge requests, and the usual stuff you would expect from an open source project. I'm speaking very quickly, I think, so I'll have to slow down. Otherwise, we will be.
14 minutes left out
yeah.
of 20. Yeah.
Yeah, I will slow down. So. Again, the faster release cycle. This is something this is something we decided already. So the odd numbers will be the development releases, and they will be released as we go and as needed. So 9.14, 9.15, 9.17 will be the development release. This is similar with if you know what Nginx does. And the support for those releases will be best effort. So if you write a bug, we will fix it in the Git and release in the next cycle. That might be monthly, that might be quarterly. Depends on the severity of the bugs in those releases. So from those development releases, once the new features stabilize, we will spin off the stable release that will be just bump the number. And so from 9.14, the last release, 9.14, will turn into 9.14. And this release will be supported until next stable release, which roughly translates supporting it for any year. And then every second stable release will be the so-called extended support version. That will be supported for 4 years in total with some overlap. I think this is much better shown in the table. So if you look at the table, now this is the 2018, this column. So now we have version 9.9 ESV, and we will be there will be end of life for 9.9 and 9.10 this year. So 9.11 will turn into ESV, and it is a sort of exception before we switch to the new development model, because it will be supported for 6 years in total. So the blue squares are the extended support version, years. So only a major bug fixes and security errors will be fixed in the extended support version. And the purple is the security-only support. So this is the 1 year it overlaps. So if you want stability, you would be using the ESV version. And during the last year, you would have to switch to the next ESV. And for the development releases, this is 9.14, this is the orange box. And it will switch to being stable next year for 9.14. So 9.14 will be supported only for 1 year. And so go on, and it goes on indefinitely. The another decision we had to make, because Bind supports almost anything, at every start of the release cycle, we will evaluate the life cycle of the major Linux distributions, BSDs, and selected proprietary operating system like macOS X, Windows, Solaris maybe. It also depends on what system we have access to, because it's hard to support something we don't run in our labs. And at the beginning of each release cycle, we will say we will support these distributions, and it will stay this way. So there will be a list for each release, and you will be sure that nothing will break during all the release cycle. So any breakage could come only at the beginning of the release cycle of each major Bind version. So and then there will be several tiers. So the supported tier. So this basically means we will patch it. If you send us a bug report that it doesn't work, we will fix it and we will patch it. Then there will be best effort tier. So it basically means if we have a time, we will patch it, but it would be better if you send us the patch to support your favorite platform, if we can. And if we can, we will incorporate the patch. And then there will be non-supported tier. So this means don't even bother sending a patch, unless it's like an easy fix and it doesn't break anything else. It might. So there's no guarantee that this will be incorporated if you send us a patch. So basically, the reason why we want to do that is that this new release of the support platform will allow us to fully utilize a modern C language standard, because now bind 11 can still be compiled with the GCC 2.95, which I don't think it's reasonable in 2018. So the libisc, there is a whole set of library that are full of wrappers to fix the bugs that no longer exist in modern operating systems. So we should rely more on standard libraries, use the POSIX, use C11 language constructs. We will probably stick with the subset that's supported by Windows to just make things easier for us, and so we don't have to have some wrappers around it. But the visual compiler subset is well, mostly complete, and for the things we want to use. We should also use external libraries where appropriate, so not reinvent the wheel and focus on the things that's important. And the important thing in DNS server is the DNS, not the supporting libraries. So that basically the reason is that the code base of bind is so huge that we need to reduce the code base we have to maintain in bind to really have time to focus and maintain the DNS protocol. Some of the planned features for the development for this year is a local root zone copy, RFC 7706-like implementation that has been sponsored by ICANN. We also plan to add modules and hooks interface in bind. So this will allow us to do a few things, like well, basically this means that you will be able to load your own dynamic module into the query response processing and modify the data that will be sent to the client. And it will also allow us, as ASC, to refactor some non-core functionality into the modules and make the bind core lighter and easier to maintain. So this is the main feature. So every DNS server will be mining node, and this is called DNS smart contracts, and as you know, the DNS cache is a permanent storage. If you haven't seen it, there's a link for Jeff Houston presentation about the zombies in DNS, and the ISC stocks will skyrocket, of course, if I show you this slide. This is of course a joke for the record.
Already bought the buying company.
So the other thing we would like to do in the future is refactoring. I was surprised that this is a quote from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, that if anything at all, perfection is finally attained, not when there's no longer anything to add, but when there's no longer anything to take away, when a body has been stripped down to its nakedness. And I think that this applies to bind, because the code base has grown a lot in the years, and it needs to be refactored and make it simpler. The functions needs to be split and refactor, and this is something we really ought to do, and we plan to do. So basically, I want to say that bind's not dead yet, baby. Bind's not yet dead. Thank you. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and please state your name and affiliation so I know the context if you ask a question. Okay, Spawn of the Evil speaking.
My name is Shane. I work for Oracle Dyn.
Not speaking for Oracle Dyn.
So I like the new release structure with the odd releases being chaos and the even ones being controlled chaos. But one thing that's happened, there was a time in the distant past when I was involved with Bind 9 where we tried to not add changes to release versions. That kind of went away because I didn't have enough control over the developers. It would be nice if the even versions didn't introduce new features or change syntax or things like that. As an operator, it's quite frustrating when you put in what you think is just a security fix and all of a sudden you have to go through all your configs and double check things.
That's basically the plan.
Okay.
That's basically, and because if you look at the release cycles, they are quite short. It's just 1 year.
The reason I was confused is because you said in the purple it will be only security fixes, which to me implies that all kinds of other weird stuff.
No, this is like the blue is like the major bug fixes, like,
Okay.
and maybe adding new records or stuff like this.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
but yeah, the developers are always the problem.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Will you also provide, for example, Debian packages of the development versions and the... You used to love Debian, but the packages in Debian itself are quite old.
There are several stuff that happened. I became the maintainer of the Debian package in Debian, so this will be hopefully in much better shape. And there are already experimental repository for Debian for 9.11 and 9.12, but we haven't announced them yet because they are running on packages.suri.org, which is not. But if you want to try them, then you can go to packages.suri.org/bind, and there are experimental packages that even change the packaging structure. So really, don't deploy them in production yet.
Mine coins.
Yes, and they mine coins.
May there be packages which I can use in production?
Yes, there will be, but this is like, I did this like 14 days ago, so it needs to be put through some testing at least. I'm running this on my servers, but this I'm not a good tester. I'm good at breaking things, but I'm not punctual enough to be a tester. So this needs to be put through testing, and then the IC will announce the official repositories for basically these three classes: the stable, ESV, and development. There will be like 3 repositories that could be used by external people, and that's not only for Debian. We plan to have a Red Hat CentOS repositories as well, and that's also work in progress that should be available soon. I think that Peter there had.
I noticed on your GitLab it's not possible to view any of the things if you're not logged in. Will that change?
It's a little link down below and store. Oh wow.
Super hard. Oh yeah, okay.
Can you tell us what just happened there for the stream?
But Peter asked that something is not visible in a GitLab, the IC GitLab, and the response from the audience was that it is there, but you need to find it, look it for harder. Go ahead.
Now when you go into more modular design, do you expect there will be more exciting and exotic features they added to Bind? That's such as like say encrypted queries. Just when we move on from that.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. But my goal at the moment is to stabilize the thing and make it more sustainable. And adding more exotic features goes against that goal. But on the other hand, if the exotic features is interesting enough, then it might happen. Also, we might have a contrib repository for modules contributed by other people, because there are already, and also the reason why we opened the GitLab is to invite more people to be involved with Bind, and to be like more open to the things we accept from the public. So to answer your question, I don't expect it to happen like very soon from the ISC. But if somebody comes and says, "Hey, I wrote this cool module. Could you put it somewhere at the ISC GitLab so other people can find it?" Then yes, the answer would be yes.
Sorry, I have to stop.
Oh, okay.
One last question.
One last question.
One. Yes, sure.
Would the ESV version be released in like January, February time? I'm working
You
on
mean-
Canonical, Ubuntu releases in April, and
You mean the 9/11?
not the 9/11, but like the 9/16, for example. Do you aim to release that in January?
We are not there yet. But basically,
We are.
well, that's a good question, and sorry, and we might talk to more maintainers about this, how it would be best for Canonical, for Debian. That's the question I need to answer myself, and for Red Hat. So, and probably others, but I think those are the major ones we need to take care about. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.